Jim, I want to start with recent news coming from U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. She's calling for business leaders to pay higher taxes to support the Biden infrastructure plan. Now, if businesses in the U.S. are, let's say, overtaxed, overregulated, what do you see their options as being?
Well, as you know, the U.S. is no longer as competitive as it used to be in the world markets. I'm not the only one who knows that, and many companies have moved away, put factories in other places. They're forcing them out. There'll be more of the same. I mean, if you're trying to compete on the world market and you have to pay higher taxes, and everybody else has to pay higher taxes, it's impossible to compete. So you have to manufacture somewhere else. It's not good for America. But Mrs. Yellen and Mr. Biden, their whole lives, have loved taxing and borrowing and spending money.
Aside from this, we're also seeing businesses looking for workers. A record 8.1 million job openings in America are available, yet no workers are in sight. Jim, despite the numbers of people being vaccinated growing each day, why isn't America going back to work?
From what I read, the unemployment benefits are so high that many people can make more or as much just staying home and letting the government send them checks. I don't know. I don't know the facts, but I've read several articles to that effect. And if that's the case, that's the problem. I mean, there are many people in the world who say, I'd rather sit home and watch the sports or watch the drama than work. They're sending me money. If that's the case, Patrick, of course, America's shooting itself in the foot.
Jim, the money printing, the stimulus, as we just kind of touch on, the decade of low interest rates, we're seeing more and more talk of inflation, and we are seeing that talk in prices. Lumber prices up, homes, food, fuel. Can the Fed keep on this course of loose monetary policy, or will we start to see tightening perhaps sooner than later?
Well, the Federal Reserve and the Treasury both say, don't worry, we have this under control. If there's inflation, it's transitory, etc. Now, I know from history that either they don't know what they're talking about or they're lying, because throughout history, when you have staggering amounts of money printed and borrowed and spent, it's nearly always led to inflation. And we do see inflation rising now. I would suspect we're going to have more inflation despite what these guys say. I have certainly learned I've been investing a long time and have been reading a long time. I've learned that most of the time, these guys either don't know what they're talking about or lie. I suspect it's both this time as well. They're just not being honest with all of us, or not being honest with themselves.
Do you think if that inflation really starts to rise, maybe even get out of control a bit, do you think the Fed will have the courage to raise interest rates?
No, certainly not, because these guys are more interested in keeping their jobs than anything else, Patrick. They don't care about your job or my children. They care about their jobs. And they know that raising interest rates will not be popular. So they'll do everything they can, including printing more money or buying more bonds, to keep interest rates down. Now, eventually, the market says, we don't care. We've seen this movie before. We're going to get out. And they do, and then it gets out of control, and interest rates go higher, inflation goes higher, it all feeds on itself. And then you have really, really, really bad times. Because if the market takes over from the central banks, and the market has more money and more brains than the central banks, then we're all in serious trouble.
It seems that the keeper of the U.S. dollar, the Federal Reserve, maybe even the U.S. government, are the very ones giving reason for the rest of the world to get out of the U.S. dollar, the world's reserve currency. Is the U.S. dollar on the path to being removed as the world's reserve currency?
We've had many central currencies or international currencies in history. None of them have lasted more than 100, 150 years in history. U.S. dollar has been around for several decades. So maybe it clearly is coming to an end. The fundamentals are there. America is the largest debtor nation in the history of the world. Many countries are starting to look for something to compete with the U.S. dollar. The way an international currency is supposed to work, it's supposed to be neutral. But if Washington gets angry at you, they put sanctions on you and cut you off and say you cannot use the U.S. dollar. Well, that's not what an international medium of exchange is supposed to be. So many countries, for political reasons, are looking for something to compete with the dollar. And for economic reasons. The U.S. is the largest debtor nation in world history. It's getting worse every day. I'm not the only person who knows that's a potential fundamental problem. So, unfortunately, I'm an American, and I don't like saying it, but unfortunately, the world is now looking away from the US dollar for political and economic reasons. It's not going yet, but we're starting the process.
The current Fed policies, government policies, do you think that perhaps they've accelerated this US dollar retreat from reserve currency?
No, of course. When you print staggering amounts of money and borrow staggering amounts of money, I'm not the only one who knows that America is the largest debtor nation in the history of the world. Everybody can see what's going on, and some people start to act.
Jim, that brings a question here that I'd like to ask you. Is it possible then for a nation on the rise, such as China, to have the largest population, largest economy, perhaps the greatest influence over much of the world, and yet not have its own currency, or at least be a part of a currency that is the world's reserve currency?
Well, the Chinese currency has been opening up in the last 15 years or so, but it's still not a convertible currency. You can't buy and sell. You can't just pick up the phone or go on the computer and buy and sell renminbi. So it's impossible to be the world's reserve currency or a medium of exchange if you're not freely tradable. China is moving in that direction, and it has been moving in that direction for a few years. But until they're freely convertible, and even then, it will take people a while to understand it. It's not there yet. It's the main currency I see on the horizon, which can compete with the dollar, but it's certainly not there yet.
Before we continue, help us by smashing that YouTube like button and subscribe now to this channel. This shows the algorithm that you value the information, and it helps us spread this message. Sharing is caring. Please like and subscribe now. Thank you. And now, let's continue.
The next reserve currency, do you think it may perhaps be the yuan, Chinese yuan, or perhaps a basket of currencies?
The Chinese currency is the only one I see on the horizon that could do it. Certainly cannot be the Japanese yen or the English currency or even the euro. I don't see any other currency at the moment. Now, it cannot do it either right now. As I said, it's a blocked currency. It's not even tradable, completely freely tradable. So it can't work either, at least not the way things are now.
I want to get back to the U.S. here. Is the U.S. as a capitalist country dying? And what type of government do you think it will become if you do see it as being the capitalism is dying?
Well, there's no question that the U.S. is becoming more and more collectivist, whichever word you want to use to describe it. I mean, California is more socialist than China is now, even though China calls itself communist and California calls itself capitalist. It is happening in many Western countries. They're becoming more and more collectivist, if you will. And it looks as though that's going to continue. Everybody wants a free lunch. Now there's something called MMT, which is more money today. I don't know, what do they call it? Modern monetary theory. I call it more money today. It's easy money. Everybody loves an easy answer. And so people are looking more and more for easy answers, certainly in the West. China, for whatever reason, is going less in that direction. China's not bailing people out. China's letting people go bankrupt. So China, for whatever reason, is less in that direction than many Western countries. And China has said, if you get in trouble, we're not going to bail you out. Well, in the West, they bail you out if you get in trouble. Not good, but they do it.
Okay, and we hear all this talk about central bank digital currencies, and ultimately it looks like we will be cashless at some point and be using this central bank digital currency. What are your thoughts regarding a cashless world and having to use a central bank digital currency?
Well, it's already happening. In China, you cannot take a taxi with money. You cannot buy an ice cream with Chinese money because nobody has any money. It's all on their phone. You have to have computer money already, and it's getting more and more that way. Every country in the world is working on computer money, including the U.S., and eventually, yes, all our money is going to be on the computer. Governments love that. They don't have to print it. They don't have to transport it. They don't have to, protect it. They love it. More important, Patrick, they can then know everything you do. They'll call you one day and say, you're drinking too much coffee this month. Cut down on the coffee. They love the control it will give them. I don't like it. I mean, I hope most of us don't like it, but unfortunately, that's the way things are going, and we will all have computer money eventually.
Yeah, that you've hit it on the head. That seems to be the concern of a lot of people, where a cashless world will seem to, or actually will, take away some freedoms, some liberties, and you have a concern with that as well.
So I don't want the government doing everything I'm doing. I'm not doing anything that's a problem, but whatever I'm doing, as I said, they'll call you up and say you're drinking too much coffee. What business is it of theirs what I'm doing? They love to know what everybody's doing. Most of us don't particularly want other people snooping into whatever we're doing, even if we're doing simple things like reading magazines. Who cares? It's none of their business.
So, Jim, no matter how we paint the short future ahead, we're going to have both chaos and opportunities as well. And we're going to need stores of value to maintain and protect the value of our currency. What things would you label as a store of value, especially in case of a U.S. dollar demise, since much of the world holds U.S. dollars?
Something will replace the U.S. dollar. Something has always, something replaced the pound sterling, something replaced the French franc, something replaced the Spanish peseto, et cetera, et cetera. So something, the world will find something. It's better if the world finds it rather than if some government tries to dictate it. The only possibility I see at the moment is the Chinese renminbi, but as I said, that's not practical now either. I don't see a replacement at the moment. If there's a crisis soon, the world will be forced to do something. So it might try gold and silver. Many times in history, people have used gold and silver more than gold throughout history. But I mean, I've got my silver, I've got my gold. All of us peasants know that when something goes wrong, we want some silver over there in the closet, we want some gold under the bed. Politicians and bureaucrats say, forget it. Well, they can say that all they want, but us peasants, we've been around a long time, hundreds of thousands of years, and we know we better have some gold or some silver when things go wrong.
What to do in such a situation? Inform yourself and keep your financial education strong. We from the Compact Group offer our loyal subscribers a free educational portal with first-hand monetary, financial, and economic knowledge. Enter our invite-only Insider Club by clicking the link below. You will get access to first-class information far earlier than the rest. We have prepared a special deal for all our members where you can access a giant pool of Robert Kiyosaki's financial wisdom for just $1. To find out more, simply click the link below and join our Insider Club absolutely free. But there is more you can and should do. Build up several streams of income. More and more people realize that they have to take their future in their own hands, but they don't know how and where to start. We from Compact offer our Insider Club members unique opportunities. Strengthen your financial muscle and get the edge. Click the link below. Become part of our free Insider Club. No financial obligations. But there's one important thing you have to know. You have to become active. So do it now. Become active and see you on the other side.